about lost children and about cholera. And those are the newspaper articles of the day, you know. And I kept thinking, what would a child do if his family was touched by the cholera? Because we didn't have places for children to go. We were a young city. We didn't have orphanages. If you didn't have relatives and your mom and dad died, you were on your own, just like Mitzi was, right? So I thought, you know, we know what happened to the adults when these events happen, but we don't know about the children. So that's what made me start to write it, so I could write about the children. And so the children could know about how those children came to be. Was she brave? Yeah, she's pretty strong, wasn't she? Yeah, okay. Another question? Yeah.
What do you do?
I don't really know. I've just always liked stories. I like to tell stories, and I like words. And I just was always fascinated by words on a page in a book. And that's it. It's just sort of like, why do people want to be a dancer? You know, because they like to dance, right? So that's it. Yes, you had your hands up before? Yep.
Yeah, what pretty much inspired you to write this book?
Well, I just answered the first question, didn't I? I said I found out that all this was happening. And the second book then, everybody was asking for what happened to her. And so that's why I wanted to write the second book. Yeah.
Who did you really like in the book?
Pardon?
Who did you really like in the book?
Who do I really like in the book? Well, of course, Lindsay is my favorite, but I love Dan. And Nicholas Longworth. Do you remember who he was? Well, you know, he was a real man. He really existed. And so when I looked back and I read all about him and everything, I just loved him. He was a wonderful man. Yes.
Two things. Why did you put a horse in it, and what did you mean?
Somebody asked me that took me up on the elevator. They asked me the same question. Why did I put a horse? Well, first of all, in those days, almost everybody had a horse of some kind because they had to. There wasn't any other way to get around, right? So that was one reason. But I really like horses. And Dan is my nephew. And he said to me after he read the book, he said, Aunt Jinny, you gave everybody else in our family some names of nice people in the book, and you made me a horse. Yes.
Who made the names for the fictional book?
I'm sorry. Who made the
names for the fictional book?
Who made the names? I did. I made up the names. Yeah. Yeah.
Why talk about slavery?
Why did I talk about slavery? I wanted to talk about what it was really like in those days, okay? And there was really slavery. There was slavery just across the river. You know when you go down your street here and you hit the river? What's the state across there? Across the river. What's the name of that state? Kentucky, right. And in Kentucky, it was allowed, slavery was allowed in those days. It was not allowed in Ohio, but it was allowed in Kentucky. So that meant that you could own someone else. You could own them. And you could do just about what you wanted to with them. So slavery, when you want to write a story about a certain time, you want everything that's going on to be there. And I think slavery is one of the most important things we need to talk about. I am a volunteer guide at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. Have you all been there? Nobody's been there? maybe your teachers or your school will take you there someday, and when you come, I'll give you a tour. But it's very, very important for us to know what went on. Yeah.
Was it just you that was writing the book, or was there another person to do the illustration?
Another person did the illustrations, but it also has another name on it of Nora Holt, okay? I wrote the story, and then I sent the story to my friend, Nora Holt, because she was a freelance writer. Do you know what that means? That means that she would write almost anything, you know, like if somebody needed an advertisement or something, she'd write it. So I sent it to her and I said, what do you think of this? Because I didn't know what I was doing, you know. And she said, let's rewrite it together, which we did for a while. Okay. So that's, in answer to your question, was there someone else involved? Yes. But the illustrator is totally different. And the illustrator, I think, was wonderful. I don't know if you all thought the pictures were good, but when you're illustrating a book about past times, then you have to be accurate as well. So, you know, remember when Lindsay goes to Dr. Drake to get help? We had him with a stethoscope. Do you know what a stethoscope is? Well, stethoscopes weren't invented then. So we had to take the stethoscope out, and we had to give him, in one section we actually took it out, but he would have been listening with a horn to your phone, because stethoscopes weren't invented yet. Yes?
Why did you make the book?
Why did I make it? Because I wanted everybody to know this story. Okay? Yeah.
How long did it take you to make the book?
How long did it take me to make a book? Well, to write Litzy, it took me about a year and a half in spurts. You know, I couldn't sit down and write the whole book because I had a family and I had a job and I didn't have time to do it all at once. But it took about a year and a half. And time passed, and when I wrote Litzy and the Underground Railroad, it only took about 3 months. Can you guess why? No. Yeah. Maybe I had more courage. Well, that's a good season, but we'll try one more. Yeah.
Because you had more knowledge than you had when you first started.
Well, those are all good answers, but really it was because I had Google. Okay? Google wasn't invented when I wrote the first one. And now I can go to Google, and if I want to know about Nicholas Longworth, I can pull up 4 or 5 things about Nicholas Longworth, right? And I don't have to go to the library, and I don't have to do that kind of research. Yeah. The Philanthropist. Oh, aren't you good to remember that? I'm very impressed. I have seen a copy of The Philanthropist, yes. And we have a copy of that at the Freedom Center. Okay, yeah.
When you first started the book, did you know all the characters, like maybe Berten and Dr. Wall?
No, I didn't. I knew the events that I wanted to be in the book. So what do you think some of those events would have been that I knew I had to have in the book? Yeah.
When the people attacked the
Okay, there's one. When they attacked, what else? Yeah. Mhm.
the Underground Railroad.
Underground Railroad, right? I knew I wanted to do that, yeah. Cholera. Anything else?
The cemetery.
Yeah, okay.
Dr. Drake's.
I'm sorry, you have to speak real loud.
Dr. Drake's office.
Well, I knew I was going to get into Dr. Drake, but the main events, the other one was slavery too, right? And so, I had to know those. What was your question? No, sorry. The question was about,
I said, did you know the people did you
oh,
know people who come before you had
well, no, so sometimes I think, okay, if Litsy's living near Lunkin Airport, which is what would be the area then, she needs a friend. So then I had to think up the friend. So in answer to your question, in the beginning, I didn't know all the characters. I knew the events, I knew some characters, but then as I wrote, in my imagination, I came up with other ones. Yeah.
Why didn't you not include the fugitive slave act?
Because I am totally impressed. Where did you hear about that?
We watched a video on the Underground Railroad and it said something about the fugitive slave act where that you would get a much harsher punishment instead of getting beat. And also they would actually put a price on your head.
That's right. But the Fugitive Slave
Price
Act,
on your head. That means like catch someone or kill them, you get a certain amount of money.
the Fugitive Slave Act was 1850. Okay? Litsy was 1832. Okay? But was Litsy's family, remember, in Underground Railroad? Have you all read Underground Railroad?
Yeah.
Okay. Litsy's family, remember, they go out to her old house, and then there's they see an ad that they're looking for her father, for Euleen's father.
Oh, yeah, I did remember.
And so, yes, even before the Fugitive Slave Act, a slave that had escaped from where, say, Kentucky, the owner could go and take him back. And he would pay people to do that. So the Fugitive Slave Act was a little different. They were, even before that, they were putting prices on people's heads.
Also, if bounty hunters couldn't find a descriptive, they would just take breed for another slave. Because they pretty much don't care about the slave, they just care about the money.
Exactly. You're very good, and I'm very impressed that you know about that. The other thing they would do, and I'll get to your hands in just a minute, is if, say, a slave had been freed, his master had said, I free you, like Nicholas Longworth freed Eileen, and that person was freed. He would have papers of manumission, they were called. Well, say he was walking along in Kentucky, and somebody came up to him and said, what are you doing? You should be in chains. Aren't you a slave? And he'd say, well, here's my papers. I'm a free man. And they take the papers and go. And they take him and sell him. Okay? Yeah.
Have you ever rode a horse when you were younger?
Did I ever ride on a horse when I was younger? Yes.
Did you ever ride in a steamboat?
Did I ever ride on a steamboat? Yes. And I'll tell you that story. I'll get to all your hands, okay? I don't want your blood to run your arm again. I'll come back to you, okay? I'll tell you about the steamboat. We used to have a steamboat in Cincinnati until a couple of years ago called the Delta Queen. And it was a really old steamboat, just like the Litsy, sort of like the Litsy steamboat. Well, the people that own that steamboat, you know, they take people out on great trips, like a trip for a week on the river on the steamboat. So they asked me if I would come and talk to them about the things I learned when I wrote the book. And so I did. And so they had some people on the steamboat who sang songs from the period. What was the song in the book? Do you remember? The Boatman Dance, yes. And I had to, when in writing the book, I went down to the rare book room of the library, and that's where I found the music. Okay? I didn't want to put in a rock and roll song, because Litsy wouldn't have sung that, you know. So I had to put in a right song. So these people said to me, would you like us to play some music before you speak? said, well, that would be great. They said, what do you want us to play? I said, do you know the boatman dance? And they said, well, of course we know the boatman dance. So I was so excited because I had never heard it played. And so they were playing the music, and I'm on the steamboat, and I'm thinking, any minute, Lindsay's going to come around the corner. Because it was all so real, it brought this story back to her. So that was the question, the steamboats, yes. Do we still have steamboats? Yes, yes, yeah.
So, why did you pick Litzy?
How did I pick Litzy's name? My daughter had a friend named Lissa, so I took the L-I, and my daughter's name is Annie. And so we've got L-I and I-E at the end, and I just made up the rest. Which is what's fun about being an author, is you get to name people, and you get to put the characters in that you want to be in there. Yeah, right there. How many books have I written? I've written 6, but 4 have been published. Yeah.
Are you working on
I am working on another book. It's not a Litzy book. I don't usually tell people about what I'm doing, but I'll tell you because you're such good kids. I'm not sure about it though, but have you ever been to the stable in Eden Park at Christmas time in Cincinnati? Where there's a live donkey and a live cow, live everything. Well, I kept thinking, why isn't that donkey heeing and hawing? Do donkeys hee and haw?
Yeah.
So the story is about how he's supposed to go be the donkey in the manger scene, but he has a hard time controlling his hees and his haws.
It's kind of like
Like what?
kind of like Swan.
I don't know that. Is it like?
It's like a Christmas.
Oh, I better look that up. Maybe I'm taking somebody
The
else's
small
story.
one, is that what you said?
Yeah, what has happened? Was it a donkey that?
Yeah. No, Joseph.
Oh, and did Jesus chose him because he was a little donkey? Yeah, no, it's not quite. No, it's not like that. Okay, back there.
How did you come up with the names Litzy and Megan?
Somebody up here is. Tell me what you said.
Come up with the name, let's see what she answered.
She just answered the
Megan.
Litzy question.
And Megan is my niece. And Litzy, I just answered. Okay, yeah.
Did you learn about all the people?
Did I learn about all the people? Yes, I had to learn about all those people. I didn't know much about any of them really when I knew some, but I didn't know a whole lot. So I had to go and, read a lot about all of them. Yeah.
What was the steps you had to do with the game?
This is so like, okay. Well, first I made a list of the events, like we talked about before. Then I made a list of the characters that I wanted to be in the book. And then I had to play with what event would come first. Okay, what was the first event in Litzy? Probably, she's coming down the river on a flatboat, right? And then I had to, it's like weaving, it's like making a puzzle, You look at what you want in it, you look at the people, and you kind of just make a puzzle. And it just kind of comes. Okay. Yeah.
What book do you like better, Litzy and Not on the Railroad or Litzy and Trenton?
That's a hard one to answer. I don't really know. I don't really know. You had your hand up. Yeah.
What year did you make Litzy of Cincinnati?
Well, it was a really long time ago. Almost 25 years ago. And I kept it, and And then I didn't really do anything about making it in, I had the manuscript, I didn't have the illustrations, and I didn't do much about making it into a book until I sort of retired. Okay, and then I had more time, and the children were all grown, and I had more time to do that. Yeah, in the back.
Why did you put Fort Washington, where the person Fort Washington?
Why did I put that in there? Because that's what it was like. There were things here. Have you ever been on Fort Washington Way? Well, that's where the fort was. That's why it's called that. Okay? So you try to bring in, you try to do your research and find out exactly what it would have been like at the time to live here. Yeah. Have I written a flatboat? The closest I've come to a flatboat is at the museum center. Have you been down there? The museum center looks like a train station. There is a great part of it on Cincinnati history, and they have a flatboat. So sometime, hope your teachers or your schools can take you down there because you can get on something that looks like a steamboat as well. Yeah.
And the boat came on the
Yes, she got to be about 14 in the Underground Railroad. And I'll tell you a secret here. Well, it's not a secret. This is my granddaughter. She didn't know I was even writing a book. And I gave my illustrator a picture of her so she made it look like my granddaughter. And my granddaughter was about your age, and the day it was finished, I just handed it to her. And she went, "Oh, it's me!" So then she grew up, and so did Lindsay. So this is my granddaughter at about age 12, 14, okay? And today she's in college. So that's how that came to be. Yeah.
When he came back and Megan was gone, how'd she know where to go inside the doctor?
Remember, didn't Annabelle Bailey? She met Annabelle Bailey. Remember Annabelle Bailey? And Annabelle thought that, and the doctors thought that maybe she could be in that orphanage. Okay, see, and with regard to that orphanage, we didn't have any orphanages. But when this cholera came, and so many people died, they didn't know what to do with the children whose parents had died. So they put them in that first orphanage where Megan is found. They put them in the cemetery keeper's house. And they had about 40 kids all stuffed into this house. And when you go to the place I talked about before, the Cincinnati Historical Society, they still have the book, of the ledger, they call it, of what they fed those children. Potatoes and bread and milk. And potatoes and bread and milk. And potatoes and bread and milk. And potatoes and bread and milk. You don't see much apples or meat, okay? Now then they realized that they didn't have enough room for all these children, and so the ladies of the time got together and they built another orphanage for the kids, which was a much nicer one. This is a book, this is really a coffee table book that I wrote, and it came out a couple of years ago. It's about Christmas in Cincinnati. But in it this is actually real. I found this in the Historical Society. This is the same orphanage that Megan would have been found in. And they're asking for all kinds of things at Christmas. See that? And it says, he says, this man here, it says, "Remember the orphans. Bring us clothes and bring us food and everything at Christmas time." So that's how that orphanage was. Yeah.
How
Cincinnati Female Academy actually existed. Dr. John Locke actually existed. And the cotton mill, there really was a cotton mill. I found in, thank you, in a map. Yes, I found it on an old map. We did, and that is really what happened. You know how we described how the little girl had to crawl, how Megan had to crawl under the machines? Yes, and that really happened. They employed children because the children's fingers were little. And we didn't have any laws about children not working. So they employed kids at 7 and 8 years old. You could be in that factory. Yes.
Will you talk about how your, the Sea and the Underground Railroad just recently received an award and what that award's about?
Oh, you mean this? Yeah. Oh, these are awards, which this is for Let's See of Cincinnati, and this is for independent publishers. Okay, but then this is for Jake and Sam at the Empty Abbey, which I don't think that's another book I'll tell you about in a minute. It's not like Let's See, and this is for Let's See in the Underground Railroad. And this is the Children's Moonbeam Award. Okay. We can look at the screen here, and then we can talk about a few more things. Okay. This is so magical, don't you think this is magical?
You can just tap the screen when you're ready to move it.
Okay. Okay, there is a painting of Cincinnati about the time when Lindsay would have lived there. You know, cameras weren't invented then, so we don't have any real pictures of the city at that time. So this is what it would have looked like. You're way out here. You're way back here. But if you go down to Cincinnati today, this is Mount Adams. It's all full of buildings. See how tiny it all is. But what do we see here? We see steamboats. And we see a couple of flatboats. But to show you the importance of the steamboat, when Lindsay came down on the flatboat, they just followed the current. You know, the water in the Ohio's going west. And so the boat just kind of floated on down with the current. And that when they stopped, when people who were on flatboats stopped and decided to stay somewhere, they usually took their flatboat apart. And they used it as a first shelter, okay? But if they still kept their flatboat and they wanted to go back upriver, it was so hard because they're going against the current. They don't have any motors. So they'd have to take their poles and they'd have to go, just push their way back up the river. Would take days to go very far. And you had to be really strong because you're pushing against the current. When steamboats came, now everybody could come down the river and they could go back up the river. And it was comfortable. And they could have a nice things going on the steamboat with lots of good food and a bed and everything. So Cincinnati became a center for steamboats. We built a lot of steamboats. So have you ever been to the Reds baseball game? Stadium? And when you're coming in, you see that great big paddle wheel. It's big and red. And you probably might not have known what it was. But it's to remember the steamboats. And when they get a home run, what do? Not just, pardon? They shoot the fire out of the steamboat stack. You know how it goes out of that, like, that's why that's there, because we have such a history of steamboats. Okay, this is what she found, right? Okay, now, that's really real. We think there were about 7 of those. About 5 have been found. Maybe someday you'll find one on the river. And that was what the French thought, that they owned all of this land around here. And they left these markers to say, The French get this. This is ours. Ohio, Kentucky, all of that. Well, of course, that didn't last. But when we went to the moon, did we leave anything?
Yep. Yes.
What did we leave on the moon?
They're American.
The flag. But did we say the moon was ours?
No.
No. We can't say the moon is ours. But in those days, different countries were claiming different parts of this area. Do you know where that house is? Yeah. Well, this is the kind of house that they would have built. But this one is on Clough Pike, you know, down near
Yeah.
Newtown. Yeah, and it's still there, and it is about this kind of a house that Lindsay would have had. Now, Lindsay was going to Columbia, right? The flatboat, and that was what Lunkin, in this area. You know Lunkin Airport, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, did you? So this would have been the area where she would have lived. Also, they called it, I had it in the book, do you remember what else they called it? Turkey Bottom. Because this whole thing was so full of turkeys, wild turkeys. And if you take Columbia Parkway, you see a sign that says Turkey Bottom. Okay, that's right. Columbia Parkway, and 52 is right out here, right? Your 52 is close to you. But Columbia, you know Columbia Parkway, do you know that street? No, maybe not, okay.
Some of them.
Well, it's a street that goes downtown, to the downtown Cincinnati. And it was made to go from downtown out to Columbia, and that's why it's called Columbia Parkway. Okay. Now, Lindsay goes into the city with her father the first time, and what does she see all stacked up here? What are those? Yeah. Steamboats. And you know, we used to have a thing called tall stacks. You're probably too young to remember. The last time we had it was about 6 years ago. And steamboats from all over the country come to Cincinnati. And they tie up downtown, and they give people, and it's really, really fun. And it's supposed to happen next year. So you'll be perfect to take them to tall stacks when it comes. Okay. And that's what it's like today, the same spot. This is the Serpentine Wall downtown. Okay, and Dr. Drake, did I make him up? No. Was he a special guy?
Yes.
Why was he special? Yes. you know. He started a medical college. He did a lot of really great stuff. And he was a really nice guy. Have you ever heard of Drake Hospital? Yeah. Well, that's what it's named after. Yeah. Yes, yes. He was a very interesting guy. And that's when they had the steamboat races. Did I make that up? No. The steamboats would race against each other. And you'd get two captains who were real competitive, say. And they'd kind of say, you want to race? And the machine that made the steam would keep going and 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 going, trying to go faster and faster, and then it would blow up. And that was really, really what happened. And once that happened, the cargo, they put stuff on these decks, then if a spark came, that would make it catch on fire. That was in the early days of steamboats, and then later on they got some laws that changed that, but they really did happen. Yeah, question? Yeah.
In the book, was steamboat full of news on it?
And when?
The book was on steamboat.
Yes, the steamboat blew up, and Yulene could see the child in the water, right?
No, that was Lindsay.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. Got my people confused. Saw Yulene in the water, actually. And when she pulled Yulene onto her boat, what'd she have to do? Yeah. Why did she have to hide her?
Yulene's master could also come on
That's right. And also, Litzy could get in trouble for helping us slip. She could get in big trouble, and if they found out, the captain could get in trouble. What did the captain's wife say to Litzy when she was getting off the boat? Trust the man, yes. So, see, that's part of the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad, was it a real train?
No.
No. It was people helping each other. So, the person that had the wagon that met Litzy somehow knew that Litzy had hidden this child and was going to help him. So he was part of the Underground Railroad, Mr. Dobbins. And I made that name up because when a child went to school with my children named Dobbins, and I liked it. Okay. And that's Litzy, Yuleen in the trunk. And there's Nicholas Longworth. He helped Yuleen, didn't he? And then later in Underground Railroad, where did Yuleen work? At his house, remember? Okay, so we'll do a little bit about the Underground Railroad. Was Dan a racehorse? No, he was yeah. Have you ever seen the Clydesdales? They are so pretty. He wasn't a Clydesdale, but the Clydesdales are worker horses. Okay, this is, in the first part of Underground Railroad, Litzy is crossing across Fountain Square, and she hears all kinds of things going on, and this again is a picture. It's not a photograph, it's a painting. But what's going on? What's this guy doing? Oops, sorry. Hello. No. There, okay. Okay, so what is that guy? Yeah. It's a pig, and were the pigs like kept all in one spot? No. And they were cute little Wilbur pigs. Who's Wilbur? And that's another little trick about authors. I love Charlotte's Web. I love the writing in it. So before I write this book, I would read a couple of pages because the writing is so wonderful. But this guy was not like Wilbur, okay? These big pigs, and the pigs would go around town loose. And they'd eat your sandwich. They were not nice pigs. What is that? Yeah? Oh. The Taft. But who lived there? Nicholas Longworth lived there, and his family lived there for many years. Okay. And who does she get the horse from? Yeah. No, not Tommy O'Brien. Tommy's working in what's Tommy working in? The circus. And why did I put a circus in? Because that was the only thing that was just so wonderful when the circus came to town. Because did they have TV? No radio? No smartphones? No movies? Nothing. So when the circus came, oh my goodness. And also I discovered that Cincinnati printers had made wonderful circus posters. And they would go ahead of the circus and they'd hang these big posters to the little towns where the circuses were coming. So we have a big connection with the circuses, but I got diverted here. What was the question? Who was the man that you got the horse from?
The one who came from the cabin.
Right, the one who came in the cabin on the steamboat, but she didn't recognize him right away. She just thought maybe she knew who he was, but she couldn't figure it out at first, right? And so he was going to shoot Dan, right? and she said, no, I'll take it. Yeah,
Wasn't the guy's name like
I'm sorry,
Wasn't the guy's name like No.
it's Henry,
Jim Henry.
Guy's name.
Jim Henry.
yeah,
Eli, do you remember?
Yeah, Jim Henry.
yes, okay. I also did research trying to find out the name of a bad guy in those days, and I had to kind of cobble together that bad guy. Okay, so he really didn't exist. Yes,
Maybe it was the person who, when that barn meeting happened,
yes,
it was the guy that was throwing eggs and cutting the horses.
right, because he had come to the house and she went in and she saw him, right? Yeah,
The guy was sleeping with the bottles.
yes, yes.
The bottles.
Oh, the other part in that chapter, Dr. Locke comes into Lindsay and he says to her, what does he tell her to do? I saw you get P&G out there. What does he tell her to do? Yeah? Yes, to go buy candles, right? From Mr. Gamble. Because this is P&G today, Procter & Gamble, P&G. And Mr. Procter and Mr. Gamble, before they became partners, they sold candles out of a wheelbarrow, and then they finally got a store. And why would Cincinnati be a great place to make candles and soap? Yep. Well, maybe you might not. Do you know? Okay. Well, okay. We had lots and lots of pigs, right? And we were making those pigs into bacon and pork roast and all kinds of things. But when you kill a pig, then the things that you need to make candles and soap come from that. So Mr. Procter and Mr. Gamble would go get the stuff they needed to make soap and candles. And did they ever in a million years think that someday they wouldn't be pushing a wheelbarrow, but there would be a business like this? Okay. Anybody here work here yet? Or family work? This actually still exists. Remember when Litzy sees the man who tells her about the trains that are coming? That man's family still lives in Clifton, and the trains began right around there. His name was Captain Streeter, and his wife, his descendants, the people who came after him, live in Clifton, and their house has pictures of steamboat captains and all kinds of things. This is the trail, but that was part of the railroad. Okay, today, see Strader Street when you go on Eastern Avenue? Yeah, it's near there. A Claudia ring, what was that all about? Yeah. Yes, it was her mom's ring, right? Is there such things as Claudia rings? Yeah, I didn't make that up. Okay. Am I going too far? Yeah, I did.
No, we read it all.
Okay, all right. Okay. Now, Litzy went to the barn, right? And who did she hear in the barn? What was speaking? Anybody? Yes.
His first name's Andrew, I know that. And
Teddy Weld. Teddy Weld is his name. And he was a man who was saying slavery must end. It's time to end slavery. It's a bad thing. And anybody who wanted to end slavery, what do we call them? Yeah. You got it pretty close. Abolitionist. When you want abolish, just remember that word. When you want to get rid of something, you abolish it. You get rid of it. So abolitionist. Okay? And he was speaking, and while he was speaking, and Litzy and Megan were in the barn, what were they doing to a horse? Yeah. Yes, and why did they do that? Why would they do such a mean thing? Yeah.
Because they wanted to keep slavery.
They wanted to keep slavery, right. They didn't like what Teddy well, but what else would that say to the people in the community when Litzy rode a horse that was, whose tail was gone and mane was gone? What did it say to everybody? Yeah. Yes, and she didn't believe in slavery, and there might be people who did, and it would be bad, okay? They also threw eggs at her, didn't they? Did I make any of that up? No, it actually happened. And they actually met in barns. And this is a barn that is still in Clifton. Now, you guys know all about barns, don't you? Yeah. But in the city, most of the barns are gone. Now, this one still exists. And there's Teddy Well. And who's that? James Bernie, right. And he wrote what paper? Oh, yes, right. Very impressive to remember that. And you know, his, wait, I think it's his great-great-grandson came to the Freedom Center. And I was so excited to meet him. I said, you mean you're really related to James Bernie? He said, yes, I'm his great-great-grandson. So that's fun. Yes, you have a question?
I know one fact about James Bernie's son, not his great-great-grand.
Uh-huh.
But I know his son. He was in the Civil War and he was
Really? I didn't know that. I'm going to read it. Good. And you know, James Bernie was born in Kentucky.
and he was like,
And yes, for a wedding present, he was given 30 slaves. And so, and he freed them. And he freed them, and then he started fighting against slavery for the rest of his life. Yes?
He also had his office in New Richmond, which is part of our
Yes.
district. So he started out in New Richmond and then moved to Cincinnati.
Yes. Isn't that fun that you're right here in the middle of it all?
I know where it is.
Do you? Good. Yeah.
That's a very like like south of Houston. South actually
Canada did not have slavery. We did have, all the states had slavery in the beginning. And then most of the states in the north made it illegal, and the southern states did. Yes, that's right. But yes, did you ever hear? Yes, he did, Abraham, but we're getting a little ahead of the story, okay? Okay, now, this is Harriet Beecher Stowe's house, which still exists. It's, do you know where it is? Have you been there? Good. Well, it's in the city, and we were just there just the other night for an event. Litzy what happened to Litzy? Dr. Locke closed his school, right? Did Dr. Locke exist? Yes. So she had to find someplace else to go to school so she could work, right? And she ended, and the first two schools wouldn't let her in, right? And so she finally got to Harriet Beecher Stowe's house. Now, in one scene I described that Harriet Beecher Stowe had papers all over and her kitchen was kind of topsy-turvy. And do you think I made that up? No, that was from a book that I read about her. And here is when Litzy cuts her hair. Why does she cut her hair? Do you think that actually happened too? A lot of people did that. They cut, because barn? Didn't Lindsay live in the barn? Now, I had to make that up. But I went to the house, and I went in back, and I tried to picture where the barn would be. I'm sure they had to have a barn. Well, why did Harry Beecher Stowe really thought it was interesting if Lindsay came? What did Lindsay have that she needed? Yeah, she had band, and they didn't have one. Okay. Now, do you know what Harry Beecher Stowe wrote? Anybody know? There's one in the book, but yeah. I'm sorry? Uncle Tom's Cabin, right. And later on in your studies, you're going to read more about that. But she wrote about how bad slavery really was. Oh, and that's Duncanson. What did he do? Yeah. And do you know, about 10 years ago, in the hall of Mr. Longworth's house at the Taft Museum today, there was all this wallpaper all over the hall. So finally, they started picking at it, you know, to see what was behind it. What they find. Sorry. They found his paintings, which are there today. And you can see them when you go. And that's a painting of Nicholas Longworth that hangs in the Art Museum today. And this is what, in that one scene when Lindsay says, it's so sad to think that on this side of the river, it's free, and all these people over here would have been enslaved. Not, I mean, all the Africans over here would have been enslaved. Yeah. The what? Your dad? Oh, yeah? He's on a barge? He works on a barge? Or, no. What's he do? Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I don't know what was happening here. Okay, that's the famous scene, right? What happened there? In the back with the gray shirt. I'm sorry, I couldn't.
We got to meet her mom again.
Yeah, she got to meet her mom again. Do you think that I made that up? Well, I did make it up. But in those days, that could easily have happened. That's what historical fiction is about. You write a story about the time, and some of it is actual and some of it is not. But a lot of times, slaves who had been separated would find each other. But what you have to understand is when slaves were sold, if there was a family, well, they would take them to the slave auction where people would come in and buy the slave. They'd bid on them. They'd say, I'll give you 10, I'll give you 15, I'll give you 20, 25, whatever. Say a slave family's standing there. Someone would bid and say, well, I'll take the man, but I don't want the rest. So he would have to go off. Or I'll take that child, but I don't want the rest. So you see, Euleen had been sold away from her family. So many slave families were separated, but many of them did find each other later. Okay?
But not Henry Box Brown.
Pardon?
But not Henry Box Brown.
No. But you know, you read Henry Box Brown?
Yeah.
Oh, good. And people helped him get in the box, right?
Yeah.
And do you know that he got free, right? He went to Philadelphia. The people that helped him spent 7 years in jail just for helping him. Okay? And this is Megan in the cotton factory, the cotton mill. And actually that's when cotton, well, that's a whole nother story. But yes, we did have a cotton. And, oh, remember when you asked me about the bounty hunter?
Yeah.
And this was an ad. This is an actual ad. I didn't make it up. Okay? And I took this from, I found this ad. So, a managed to capture shall They have an immediate reward of $200.
That was
So if you caught somebody and took them back to the master, you could claim money. Okay. Oh, thank you. I am really impressed with how you've studied this and how much you know. And you're great, you have great questions, and you go home and you tell your parents, you're just the best kids in the world. Okay?